Nolan, thanks. So Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers is asking the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, to help the state with damage assessments after the recent floods. Evers says there's too much damage for the state to handle alone. He also believes Wisconsin will qualify for that federal aid. However, that request has not been made yet and cannot be completed until that full damage assessment is done. Outagamie County Executive Tom Nelson calls Governor Evers' federal disaster request, quote, welcome but not surprising. He says public infrastructure damage is already between $1 and $2 million, enough to qualify for that public aid, and expects damage to homes and businesses to be even higher.
So that means that you had substantial flooding in the basement and possibly up to the first level. So those are the cases. Those families will have the most difficult time rebuilding. And so that's where our focus has been.
Outagamie County is working to finalize numbers, get that formal report for FEMA. Flood and storm victims are urged to call 211 to report damage if they have not already.